Hello there. Hi, this is Mr. Ridd again, and I'm here to take the next physics session in e-sgol, which is going to be on using formulas and numeracy in physics. And last week, hopefully you were here for that with Mr. Nettle, where we looked at speed, distance, and time. And what I'm going to be doing today is more of a generic sort of overview of the mathematical skills that you will need in physics. Okay, so I'm just going to check Mr. Nettle that everything's okay and we can see everything. I'm sure it's fine. You can just send me a little message, Mr. Nettle. I'm sure we're good though. Right then, so what we're going to be looking at today then is these things, these learning objectives, covering converting units, standard form in physics, quantities and their units of measurement, using formula triangles, and we're going to be looking at some practice questions. So let's kick straight off then with converting units. Now, really, to explain why we need to convert units, I'm just going to direct you to this question: how far is it to London? Now, I'm sure a lot of you might have some idea that it's in the order of maybe, well, I don't know, do you know? Well, we'll have to see, maybe someone will put it on the chat, but if I was to give you this answer, you'd think that that was a little odd, all right? Even though it's technically correct. So I'm saying it's 241,800,000 millimeters, and that is technically correct, but we can all agree that that is a silly thing to do, isn't it? It's a very silly thing to do. We need to use units of measurement that are appropriate for a given situation. So in the case of the question of how far it is to London, we would use units such as miles or kilometers to express that distance. And seeing as physics is all about measurement, science is all about measurement, having the appropriate measurements is crucial then to making sense of things really, and to presenting our results. So here we've got some typical examples of big numbers we might come across in physics and small ones, right? So the distance to the moon is 384 million meters. Now, as physicists, we get very fed up of writing down zeros. And you could imagine that if you're doing lots of calculations with large numbers, especially when you're talking about something like space, you would get soon very tired of writing down all those zeros, like I said. So what we tend to use is a mixture of either prefixes, okay, which are things like kilo, or this, which is standard form. Now, believe it or not, all those things mean exactly the same thing. 384,000 kilometers might be a little bit more easy to digest than the top answer in meters, but then even easier to write down is 384 times 10 to the 8 meters, okay? Here we've got an example from biology. We've got the thickness of a human hair, which is 0.00008 meters. Again, not a fun number to write down. So what we tend to do is use standard form, and we might express that as 80 times 10 to the minus 6 meters. Okay. Also, we might even say microns, okay, or micrometers. And then finally, when you get down to the size of an atomic nucleus or the diameter of an atom, we're talking really small stuff here. And rather than writing down all those zeros, we'd write down something like 5 times 10 to the minus 10 meters. Okay. Right, so let's take a look at this table. Here are some of the prefixes and standard form examples that you might expect to come across in your GCSEs. So the most common really is kilo, okay, which has got the symbol K up here, okay, kilo or K. And kilo, if you think about a kilometer, you'll probably be aware that a kilometer is 1,000 meters. But the kilo part doesn't just apply to distances. The kilo part can apply to anything. It could be a kilonewton, for example, which would imply 1,000 newtons. You could even say that I've got 1 kilopound in the bank, which would mean you had 1,000 pounds in the bank. That prefix can apply to anything. And what it means is times 1,000, right? So if I wanted to get, for example, from kilometers, 1.5 kilometers to meters, I simply need to multiply by 1,000. And if I do that, that is the same as moving the decimal place 3 places. All right. So the answer to this in meters would be 1,500 meters. I could also write it using standard form, and that would look like this: 1.5 times 10 to the 3 meters. These are all the same thing. All right, let's have a look at another example. Mega, or capital M. Okay, you might have heard of mega used as a prefix maybe in computing, although that's rarer these days. But mega is often used as well in terms of measurements of power. So a power station would have an output in the order of megawatts. Now mega means times a million, so that's what a million looks like. And a million in standard form is times 10 to the 6. So this one's backwards. The question here really is, that is 2,300,000 watts, but what is that number in megawatts? Well, I'd have to multiply megawatts by a million to get watts. So all you need to do now is the opposite of that operation. So what you need to do there is to divide this number by a million in order to get the answer, and the answer to that is 2.3. It's the equivalent of moving the decimal place 6 places from the back to there, okay? And again, if I wanted to, I could write this as 2.3 times 10 to the 6, okay? Then we got giga. So giga is not one you're likely to come across, but I thought I might mention it anyway, because giga is something that we often use in terms of computing for a gigabyte of data, okay? But I thought I'd mention it. It is a billion. That is what a billion looks like, okay? It's times 10 to the 9, and you know, the sharper among you will notice that the 6 here refers to the number of zeros that we got, and so does the 3 refers to the number of zeros we've got. So that is times 10 to the 9, so 500 gigabytes. What's that in bytes? Oh, that's a lot of zeros, that is. And this is, again, what physicists don't like to do. So we've got 500, and then we've got another 9 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's how many bytes of data that would be. And again, that is a very annoying way to write something. Far easier to write it in standard form. And then finally, the one that you definitely likely to encounter is milli, right? That's wrong, Mr. Red. Sorry. It's got a little m. Okay, it's got a little m. Mega, look up here, is big M. Milli is little m. All right. So that means to divide by 1,000. And to divide by 1,000 is the same as saying in standard form times 10 to the minus 3. Okay. So 14 millimeters, if I was to divide 14 millimeters here by 1,000, what would that look like? Well, you're moving the decimal place 3 places, that would be 0.014. Now, you're welcome to just type that into a calculator, don't forget. In your science exam, it's not like maths. You get to use a calculator if you want it, okay? We're not that mean, not like they are in numeracy. So that's what you need to do there. And again, I could write this in standard form, 14 times 10 to the minus 3, all right? And that would be in meters. All right, moving on. In most cases, calculations are made in physics in meters, kilograms, seconds, watts, newtons. We don't tend to make calculations in megawatts, meters, and in fact, it's usually a good idea to always convert things into these units before you make calculations. And you see what I mean just a little bit later on. Okay, so converting units, I'm going to give that one a tick and say we're done there. Okay, right, standard form in physics, a little bit more on that then. So if I wanted to write this number, for example, at the top here in standard form, the first thing you need to do, right, with this 850,000 is to put a decimal point in there. So when we write in standard form, we usually write it as something point something, right? So like 2.3 or 1.87. It's usually got one number before the decimal point. Now, because I've done that, what that means is I've actually moved the decimal point a lot. Okay, so let's have a look how many places I moved it. I moved it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I've moved that decimal place 5 spaces to the left. And I've got to just remember that now, because then I can write down 8.5 times 10 to the 5. And that 5 represents how many spaces, look, I moved the decimal place. And that number is 8.5 times 10 to the 5. That's the same as 850,000. Okay. If the number is less than 1, so here we've got a decimal, 0.0075, and let's say if I want to write this in standard form, again now to turn it into 7.5 something, I got to think about how many decimal places I've got to move the point. Okay, so that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. But this time you'll notice, instead of moving the decimal place to the left as I did in the top example, this time I've moved the decimal place to the right. So now, instead of writing down times 10 to the plus something, I'm going to write down times 10 to the minus something. So this number is going to be 7.5 times 10 to the power of minus 4. Because I moved the decimal place, don't forget 1, 2, 3, 4 places. Okay, this number is the same. Now, as I said before, these numbers are far more manageable. They're nicer to work with. And although you might hate standard form now, for those of you who go on to A level and maybe even beyond, I believe me, standard form will become your friend, even if all your other friends leave. Anyway, moving on. So here's some more examples just quickly then. 0.08 millimeters. Now, if I get 0.08 millimeters in an exam question, I'm likely to want to convert it to meters to make a calculation. So let's just have a look at how I would go about doing that. I remember that milli is 1 times 10 to the minus 3. And what I'm able to do then is just replace the milli part with times 10 to the minus 3. So this goes from 0.08 millimeters to 0.08 times 10 to the minus 3, because I just replaced it with this bit here. Okay, kilometer. Well, kilos, remember, is all right. 1 times 10 to the 3 in standard form. So therefore, if I got 340 kilometers, I just replaced the k with times 10 to the 3, and that will give me my answer in meters. And now I'm able to likely make a calculation without any problems. The nanometer example, well, nano you don't need to remember really. Okay, I'm just making you aware. For those of you going to A level, you will need to know. But anyway, that's times 10 to the minus 9. But the operation and the principle exactly the same. You just replace the little n with the standard form, and you're good to go. Okay, maybe we'll just look at this one on the bottom. Can anyone remember, I wonder, what mega is? What is mega? I know there's a delay on the group, on the chat. Love it if someone answered. What is mega? If you answer, I'll give you a shout out. Okay. So what is mega? I know there's a delay, so I'm going to move on. Hopefully it'll pop up in the chat though. Mega is times 10 to the 6. So you just replace the m with times 10 to the 6. It's that easy. All right. And now you're probably able to do your calculations. Next one, kilo. Okay. Times 10 to the 3. Milli, don't forget, times 10 to the minus 3. And then this last one, oh, I haven't even discussed this one. I don't know if anyone knows what that symbol represents. I'm going to leave that. I'm not even going to answer that. I'm going to leave that open in the group chat and move on. Let's see if it comes through. Okay. Right then, so making calculations then. So let's have a look at an example. Calculate the acceleration of a car with a driving force of 82 kilonewtons and a mass of 2,000 kilograms. Now, in exam questions, they will very often do this, and they'll put it in units that you maybe have to do something with, and they do it to intentionally confuse you because examiners just fundamentally aren't very nice people. So let's take a look at how we can start to solve this problem. First of all, I have to acknowledge that this 82 here is in kilonewtons. This is 82 kilonewtons, right? So I have to find the correct formula. First off, if I haven't got the right formula, then I'm not going to answer this question. And we'll look at finding the right formula in just a moment now, and we're going to look at formulas exclusively. But for now, take my word for it. The correct formula to use here would be A is equal to F divided by M, Newton's second law. Now, the numbers then. Let's see what numbers we got. Well, I can't just go ahead and make this calculation, because if I'm going to give my answer in meters per second squared, this kilo part here has to be dealt with. Because at the moment, if I just put down 82 divided by 2000, that's just going to imply that it was only 82 newtons divided by 2000 kilograms. And that is a completely different calculation to 82 kilonewtons. Because 82 kilonewtons, I'm sure you're all screaming at the screen, is 82 times 10 to the 3. It's 82,000 newtons. And now that I've replaced the kilo with the times 10 to the 3, or if you're happy to, it's perfectly reasonable to do 82,000 divided by 2,000, and that's absolutely fine. You can actually start cancelling some zeros there. Oh, that's fun. Okay. And then we end up with the correct answer, 41 meters per second squared. You have to deal with the kilo part, okay? Let's have a look at another one. How much energy is produced when a turbine produces, sad, so sad, so sorry. An average power of 0.8 megawatts over a 2-hour period. Okay, lots to deal with here. First of all, let's look at the megawatts part, okay? We choose the correct formula. Energy is equal to power times time. Then we put the right numbers in. Now here we've got a big problem. We've got watts in megawatts. We've got time in hours. And really what we want is everything in watts and seconds. So let's tidy this up. The mega part, well, that's times 10 to the 6, okay, or 0.8 million, all right, watts. And then the hours, you can see what I've done here, I've converted into seconds, okay? So if we do all that, we end up with this huge number. Look at this answer here, all right? Is it right? Yeah, it is. You bet it's right. But it is possible that you might get asked to tidy this number up. You will sometimes be asked to maybe write this answer in megajoules, as the question is at the bottom, look, see? What is this in megajoules? Oh, right, okay, what we're going to have to do here. Now, if you remember earlier, I said to go from megawatts to watts, or to go from megajoules to joules, you have to multiply by 1,000,000. So what do you think you need to do to go from joules to megajoules? Well, if you're not multiplying by 1,000,000, you've got to do the opposite. The opposite would be dividing by 1,000,000. Now, if I divide by 1,000,000, again, you can punch this in a calculator, that's no problem, but that's like taking away 6 zeros. So that ends up as 2,880 megajoules. A little bit more of a manageable number, I think you'll agree. Okay, so standard form in physics, give that a tick. Well done, we're on fire. Let's go. What time are we on? I'm doing all right. Next then, quantities and their units of measurement. Right. This isn't a really long one. All right, this isn't a really long one, but it's going to require a lot of work on your part. So if you've understood a lot of what we talked about so far, those skills will stay, and you'll be ready to use your standard form should you need to in an exam. But here are the list of equations for year 10. And here are the list of equations for year 11. So those of you who are in year 11 now, you're not going to need these previous equations, or any equations that you do need, you'll be given in year 11, okay? Here are your equations for year 11. Also, you can see here that some of them are higher tier as well, okay? So those equations are only needed if you're doing higher tier. Now, you can look at this one of two ways, and I always say this to my students. You can first of all say, whoa, that's a lot of equations. This looks really hard. I'm a little bit freaked out. I think I'm going to have a panic attack. I would say that this is far less scary than you might think, because first of all, you get given every single equation here. So you're going to get all these. This is going to be known as page 2, right? Page 2 of your exam paper. This is what it's going to look like, all right? And page 2 is going to be your friend, all right? You're not going to need to remember them. So in some ways, this might sound a little bit crazy, physics can be really easy in year 11, because as long as you're good at applying formulas to questions, you're going to nail it. You're going to pick up lots of easy marks and you're going to pass. And I'm serious about that. If you know how to use these formulas, if you can rearrange them, then you're going to be okay. All right. So let's start looking then at where this could get tricky, because although you get all the formulas, what you do not get are all of the symbols, although you get a lot of them. You need to know what the symbols mean. So me looking at these formulas, if I see W is equal to mg, I might see W equal to mg. If I don't know what W is, and if I don't know what m is, and I don't know what g is, then I'm like, what? Okay. You have to know what these symbols stand for, and that's where I made this little table for you. And you can refer to this whenever you like. All right. Acceleration got symbol A, measured in meters per second squared, and so on. Velocity symbol V, time t. So a lot of these make sense. All right. Weight little w usually. You'll notice work, which is energy, is big W. So watch out for that. Gravity little g. Now, energy, oh, it's a sneaky one, energy. It's got lots of different symbols. So depending on what we're working out, whether we're working out KE, I wonder if anyone can tell me what KE stands for, or EPE, or GPE. These are all different forms of energy, okay? Now, the first one stands for work done, gravitational potential energy, kinetic energy, and the final one is elastic potential energy. They all are measurements of energy. They're all, if you like, quantities of energy. So that is a little bit of a sneaky one. But you remember that they're all measured in joules. Spring constant K, you have to know what K means. So if a question asks you to determine the spring constant, if you don't know what K is, then you don't know to use this formula here. Question asks you to work at a spring constant, you need to know that you're after K, and if you know you're after K, then you know where to find it on this formula sheet. Extension X, and finally we already mentioned work. Now the thing that's really hard, kids, right, and the thing that you're going to have to make sure you learn are the units of measurement. This can be an explicit question sometimes in exams. You have to know what things are measured in. And I say I can't really help you with that. That's just good revision. Right? So study this carefully and make sure that you learn them. One to watch out for always is the acceleration one here. And I know Mr. Nettle will agree with me. The amount of students that actually miss off the squared part, all right, and get that unit of measurement wrong is quite remarkable. A lot of grades missed because of that little issue. Okay, moving on then. Quantities and the measurements, we're going to give that a tick and say they're done. Although, like I said, that's over to you. You've got to learn those quantities, learn the symbols, learn the units and measurements. Next, this is the really important bit now, using formula triangles. Now, again, I'm sure a lot of you might know how to do this, and that's fine, but this is a video for all, so we're just going to make sure that we all know how to use a formula triangle. So if I've got a formula in this format, then I can draw myself a little triangle, and I can then put these quantities into a formula triangle like so. So if this were a real equation, like for example, power is equal to voltage times current, then power would go on the top and the voltage times current bit would go underneath, like so. Let's look at another one. What if you've got a formula though in this form? So instead of, you know, A is equal to B times C, you've got A is equal to B divided by C. All right, how are you going to put that in a formula triangle? Well, in this case, your B would go on the top And remember now, B is dividing by C, so B is always going to go on the top, and your C is going to go there. All right. Now, in fact, your A and your C can be, whichever way around you want. That doesn't really matter. The formula triangle will still work. So this is an example that you're very familiar with, and you'll be familiar with this one from maths. Speed is distance over time. So we can easily put that into a formula triangle like so. So you need to get good at constructing formula triangles. Now, why is it that we need to construct formula triangles? Well, it says so at the top here. This is how we avoid using algebra to rearrange formula. Somebody might be fine with algebra, you might be okay with rearranging formula. That's okay, but this is a really easy method for everyone to be able to write down the correct formula for a given question. Let's have a look here. Here's another formula triangle. Okay, constructed in the same way that we just talked about. But with a formula triangle, okay, we really want it, okay, to be able to give us some different formulas. So if a question is asking me to work out voltage, the question asks me to work out voltage, and I've got information on power and current, then what I do is I cover up voltage, right? If I look at voltage here, I look at voltage, and that is equal to power divided by current. Okay, so voltage there is equal to power divided by current. That's what the line is showing us, right? You cover up the thing that you want, and whatever's left over is what the formula is going to be. Let's have a look at the next one, okay? So in the next example, if I wanted to work out current, if a question asked me to work out current, well, I look at current in the formula triangle, and that's going to be equal to power divided by voltage, which is what we got over here. That way now, I can construct any formula that I need from this triangle really easily, all right? Right then, let's just check in. Yeah, we're doing good. Okay. So let's think about how we're going to construct some formula triangles in our exam, right? Because if I go back a little ways, well, actually that'll take too long. If you remember our formula page, page 2, they don't give you formula triangles, they just give you formulas. So you need to be able to write down a formula triangle. So let's have a look at this first one now. If I was to construct a formula triangle like that, okay, same rule as before. I is equal to V over R, look, you see I is equal to V divided by R, look, right? So that's one way of looking at it in terms of how you construct it. Energy power times time, right? That would look like that. To say you might need to draw these on the day. So P is equal to VI, okay, well that's fine. All you need to do there is put the V and the I on the bottom, look, because you've got V times I here, so the V times I goes on the bottom, no problem. And we got P equals I squared R. A lot of these are year 10 formulas, but it's the principle that we're after here. So P is equal to M over V, look, there's your M over V. So put that in first. That's what I tell a lot of my kids, okay? Put the M over V in first, and then you can just put the momentum part in afterwards, all right? And then finally, V is equal to lambda F, okay? Looks like that. Anyway, some examples, look at them again if you want to replay the video and, try those yourself. You can always pause it and give it a go, okay? Right. Let's have a look then. Some of the formulas that you get, of course, they're not symbols, they've got words. So if you look at page 2, sometimes you've got, instead of V is equal to D over T, you've got speed is equal to distance over time. Principle is exactly the same. It works with words just as it would if we had symbols, okay? No different at all. So this is page 2 of the exam paper, and I was talking about this a lot just now. So get used to looking at this, all right? And in fact, seeing it before you go into the exam is very important so that you're familiar with it. Look down here, you've actually got some prefixes, look. So they give you these in the exam. They're telling you that milli is times 10 to the minus 3, telling you kilos times 10 to the 3, and they're giving you mega as well. So you've got them written down, but it's important to understand how to use them as well. Right, so that's formula triangles done. And now we're going to do some practice questions. Let's do some practice questions. So first of all then, there's no particular topic here. Let's remind ourselves of that. So these questions are going to come from all over the place, and some of the questions will be on things that you haven't yet done in physics. Don't freak out about it. It's fine. I've chosen them carefully, and what I'm going to show you is, as long as you can apply the right formula, you don't actually need to know a great deal about this. So this graph shows how far a particular spring extends when forces are applied. Real simple. If you stretch a spring, the more force you apply, the more it stretches, and that's all this graph is showing you. Look, as the force goes up, look, right, as the force goes up, so does the extension, which is given by this line here. All right, up to point E. Right, calculate the spring constant. Right, okay, whoa. Calculate the spring constant. So Sir always gets, Mr. Ridd always gets his students to highlight things which are important in questions, okay? Calculate the spring constant of this spring up to point E using this equation. Look, they give it to you, look. That's a dream, that, isn't it? They're giving you the equation. So this is an easy example of how this question could have been phrased. But I want us to just think about, could we have done this if it had just said spring constant? I think we could have, and I'm just going to show us how we could have got that formula, because some questions, some harder questions, will be exactly like that. So first of all, I wonder if anyone can remember what the symbol for the spring constant is, because if you can remember Hooke's law to a certain degree, or if you can remember that the spring constant's actually got the symbol, yes, you said it, K, right? Then even if I didn't have this, I could work it out. So if I know the spring constant's got symbol K, then I can look at my formula here, my formula sheet, my page 2, and I can find it on here. Can anyone find me formula for K? Spring constant. Oh yeah, look, force spring constant times extension. Look, it's there. All right. Force is spring constant times extension. F is equal to kx. Now watch this. Let's imagine we didn't have that, all right? F, oh, hang on, excuse me. F equals kx. Could you draw a formula triangle of this? Yeah, you bet we could. Right. K and x on the bottom, look. K times x on the bottom, and F there. So then what we can do is say to ourselves, right, if I had to work out the spring constant, look, I didn't have this. If it was a harder question, I cover up K. I'd say K equals, I'm after the spring constant, K equals F divided by X, which is what you got there. Look, I know, but I'm just showing you. Now the force in the question, the point E. So let's have a look. Where's point E? Oh, point E is right there. Force here is 50, and the extension is 2.5 centimeters. So force is 50 divided by 2.5. Now the answer to that, okay, if you type it in, 10 times 2 is going to be 20, okay? Now, here's the thing, kids. You'll notice that I didn't change the units, right? I didn't change the units. And I said to you earlier on, be careful of things like centimeters, look. But if you look, it's asking you for the answer, look, and this is why you've got to pay very careful attention to the units. It's asking you for the answer in newtons per centimeters. So that means that this needs to be in newtons and this needs to be in centimeters. And both those numbers are in newtons and in centimeters as required. So the answer there, 20, is going to be fine. Now, I better get a calculator out for a couple of these because, yeah, there we go. I got my calculator here that I've had since I was 17, so it's 40 now. So this calculator is 23 years old. Good size, isn't it? It's mine. Next. here we've got a car. So here we've got a question about a car. We're given a table. Mr. Nettle's going to be doing a little bit about interpreting tables and graphs shortly, all right, in one of our upcoming sessions. And in this question, we've given some information like the mean time taken to accelerate from 0 to 30, the mass of the car, the CO2 emissions, the fuel economy of the car. Use data from the table and an equation from page 2 to calculate the maximum acceleration of the car. Is that page 2 again, guys? There it is. So where do I start? Where do you start? Well, let's start with a highlighter. Let's get that on. Let's get the highlighter going. So what I do is go through the question here. Oh, right, okay. Time taken to accelerate from 0 to 30 meters per second. What are these quantities here? This is an important thing to ask. Well, if you know your units of measurement, which I hope you do, or if you do learn your units of measurement, then you'd know that this is speed or velocity. 12 seconds, you should know that is a measurement of time. So what I've got is I've got velocity and I've got time, all right? Velocity and I've got time. I've also got mass. Then I've got, ooh, what's this? Well, grams per kilometer, that's CO2 emissions and fuel economy. Now, these aren't ones that we commonly come across or teach in science. These are ones that have just been given to you. So remember, you won't necessarily need to know a great deal about CO2 emissions. You just need to try and appreciate what it's trying to tell you, okay? It's telling you that the fuel economy is 32 kilometers per litre. You don't need to learn what fuel economy is measured in. You just need to not be freaked out by it when you see it in the table. But these other things you do need to know. Anyway, acceleration equation, page 2. A equals. Right, what am I going to do? First of all, you go hunting on page 2. So I have to look for equations with A in them. Equations containing the letter A. Okay, what we got? Yeah, well done for that one. Uh-oh. Oh no. We've got two equations containing A in them. What are we gonna do? Trick is to look at the question. What information have I got? Well, in this question, I got information on velocity, time, mass. Okay. So I got velocity, time, and mass. Let's have a go back here now and have a look at the equation again. Oh, here I've got mass, look. Okay, but tough break, look. I haven't got anything on force. There's nothing in the question on force. So that's not going to be much help for me. That's just going to leave me hanging. So what about this one up here? Oh, yeah, I've got velocity, look, tick. I've got time, tick. So that's the equation we're going to use. So if you're faced with something like a question on velocity, have a think about it. Is it a question that's involving forces? And if it's a question involving forces, you're going to be using Newton's second law. But if it's a question involving speed and time, then you're going to be using this one here. All right. Let's have a look then. Oh, too far. Sorry. So A is delta V over T, and I know what you're saying, but Mr. Rid, what does delta V mean? No one knows. No one knows. No, the delta part. All delta means is change. Change in. Because we're very lazy as physicists and we don't like to write too much, okay? That's why it's quite a popular subject at A level. Sometimes, okay, is because instead of writing a lot of words, we'll just use a symbol. So that means change in velocity. So let's just chuck the numbers in. The change in velocity, look, is 0 to 30. So that's 30 divided by the time, which is 12. Okay. So we do 30 divided by 12, and we get an answer of 2.5. Easy. Okay, 2.5 meters per second. Right then, so let's have a look at another one. Use an equation from, there it is again, look, page 2, to calculate the size of the resultant force required to produce this acceleration. Ah, right, okay. So now we're looking for force. Okay. Let's go back here. What are we going to use? Well, force pops up here, look. And it pops up here, like we already said. But now look, I've just worked out the acceleration. Look at that. I've got the acceleration. I know the mass. So I can work out the force. If I try to use this equation down here, I've got nothing on distance. I've got nothing on work done. So that would just be a really, you know, that's a big problem. Sad face, that is. So let's have a look. Resultant force is equal to mass times acceleration. Always write your questions out as well. Show the examiner that you know what you're doing. You've selected the right equation. That'll often get you 1 mark. Yeah, true story. It will. Now the mass of the car, I think it was 2,000. Let's have a look. No, it isn't. I was a lie. I just told a lie. The mass of the car is 1,100 kilograms. That's 1,100 times the acceleration, which was 2.5, and 1100 times 2.5 is equal to 2750 newtons. Cool beans. Okay, let's move on. The following data are collected. The students assume that each of the cake cases has a mass of 0.5 kilograms. Right, let's not worry about the context of the question. Some of you might have already done this prac. It's the one where you drop the cake cases. Great fun. Complete the table. Use an equation from page 2, remember now it's our friend, to calculate the missing value of the mean time space for work-ins. Now, when you're presented with a table like this, and I'm sorry if I'm treading on your material here, Mr. Nettle, I do apologise. Well, look, just take a look up here what these things are, right? Okay. And, you know, like I said to you before, just take a moment to think, okay, mean time, right? So I've got time here, right? Terminal speed, yeah, that's V. Okay, mass K cases, I might need that. That's M. All right, so these are the quantities that I'm working with for this question. Right, now I've got to work out this guy here, okay, the mean time, all right, and I've got information about velocity. Oh, look, this other piece of information here, look. Did you see this? Sorry, did you see this piece of information? Mean time for the K cases to fall 1.5 meters. 1.5 meters is a distance, isn't it? So I've got mass, time, velocity, and distance. Now I need to use some equation to work out this missing time. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. Where does time feature? Well, a couple of places really. We've got it here. Now, have I got any information on acceleration in this question? Because I got nothing much really, have I? I've got the speed, okay? I haven't got acceleration though. I haven't got that. And I want to work out time. I can't do it, okay? Because there are 2 unknowns there. What about this guy over here? Look, speed is equal to distance over time. V is equal to D over T. Now, yeah, that's really good news. Look, I've got distance. And I've got velocity. There's a problem though. I got to rearrange the formula. If only we had done some work on that. Oh, we did, didn't we? We did. Okay, let's have a look. Let's go back. Okay, so if I draw a formula triangle here, let's do that first. So formula triangle for speed equals distance over time looks like that. Excellent. Now I can write down a formula for time. Now if I cover up time here, okay, then what I'm left with, I can't really show you my thumb going over the formula triangle, right? But if I cover up time, I am left with D divided by V. Time is equal to distance divided by velocity. The distance in this question was 1.5. Now the velocity at for 5K cases is 2.88. So we end up with 1.5 divided by 2.88, which equals 0.52. Now, one little thing, don't forget to put it up here, okay? 0.52. Leave it down here, okay? you might lose a mark. But you've shown your work in. Show your work in, you're going to pick up marks anyway. All right. Awesome. Let's continue on. So next question. Springs are used in a wide variety of applications, ranging from those used in the suspension systems of heavy vehicles to those used in retracting ball joint pens. Ballpoint pens even. The table below shows the properties of a number of springs that are available from a particular supplier. Now, I think with this one, okay, you'll have noticed that we're quite into springs, aren't we, as physicists, okay? And your 11 course has got 2 questions with them in, all right? So let's just have a quick look at this question and we'll wrap it up then. So, spring constant K. Let's have a look here. F is equal to Kx. F is equal to Kx. We want to work out K. So I need to rearrange this formula triangle. Let's see, K and X on the bottom, F on top. Okay. Let's then think of what formula I need for K. K is equal to F divided by X. And then the force in this question, well, the force here was, let's see. Oh no, hang on. Oh, express the spring constant for spring A in standard units of newtons per meter. Didn't need to do this even, because this question, look, is giving you the answer to the spring constant. Look, for C, it's telling you in the table, okay, that it's 0.12. So 0.12, that's newtons per millimeter. All right. So what's it going to be in newtons per meter? Well, what we can do here is remember that milli is, okay, a factor of 1,000. So all we need to do here is if it's 0.12 newtons per millimeter, newtons per meter is going to be 1,000 times greater. So if we move the decimal point 3 places, we end up with 120. So that again is back to changing milli into millimeters into meters. Okay, so that could be asked as well. Right then, I don't know if there are any questions, if there's any things that need answering. Mr. Nettle, I don't know if you can help me with that at all.
Yeah, there's no questions coming through.
Fantastic. Okay, well, thanks kids, and we'll see you again maybe next week for our next session, which is on, Mr. Nettle, yours is
Graphs and how to approach them in exams.
fantastic. All right, thank you very much, and bye all.